Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the Louisiana plain, where we are advancing the cause of constitutional freedom and liberty, raising the profile of great constitutional conservative candidates across the state of Louisiana, and day by day, steadily, relentlessly, inexorably, and courageously draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of your day. We are so grateful for you. You are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for. And you know that we're only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, your friendship, your financial support. And if you are looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please do that at freedomstate.us. We would also love it if you would help us get the word out about the State of Freedom and help spread the reach. Please like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips instead of the whole interview or whole episode over on our YouTube and Rumble channels. And links to those, as you know, are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. We are so honored to be affiliate partners for General Michael Flynn's movie, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. The DVD can be purchased from several popular retailers, and he's on tour screening and promoting the film. If you'd like to support General Flynn and the State of Freedom, visit freedomstate.us to get your copy of the DVD, to buy Flynn movie merchandise, or purchase tickets to a live screening. Our affiliate link is also in the show notes. Joining us today is someone who has been a champion for truth, integrity, and a return to truly free and fair elections in the United States of America. We're so thrilled to have Mark Cook joining us today on the show. Before we bring Mark on, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Psalm chapter 119, verses 101 to 105. And it says, I refused to bend my morals when temptation was before me so that I could become obedient to your word. I refuse to turn away from difficult truths, for you yourself have taught me to love your words. How sweet are your living promises to me. Sweeter than honey is your revelation light, for your truth is the source of my understanding, not the falsehoods of those who don't know you, which I despise. Truth's shining light guides me in my choices and decisions. The revelation of your word makes my pathway clear. What an example and an encouragement for us to stay in truth and to choose truth, even when it's hard. You know, it's amazing. I've discovered in recent years that the people who make up the lies that they want people to believe, whether big or small, often begin to believe their own lies. They literally deceive themselves unintentionally while aiming to deceive others. What an insane way to live, an absolutely insane way to live. The Spirit of the Lord leads us into all truth. And if He's inside of us and active, if we're choosing and learning to better hear His voice and His promptings, then we will not be led into deception. And better than that, His truth will guide us on the path that He's made for us. So let me encourage you to choose truth today and to ask the Lord very simply to show you if there's any place in your life where you're believing a lie, big or small, and ask Him to reveal the truth to you that kills the power of that lie.
And sometimes, Danielle, it can be very difficult to face the truth, sometimes even in our own personal lives and certainly in the broader sense with the country and some of the things that are happening in the country. And it looks like there are people who are so invested in a lie when it comes to the security of our election system in the United States that they truly believe it. Now, I don't believe that they all believe it. I believe that some of them are engaged in active duplicity, but there are a large number of Americans who simply believe that our election system is safe. Well, our guest today, Mark Cook, knows better. And few people have done more to expose the vulnerabilities of our election system and to try to do something about it than Mark Cook. Mark, what a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us for a little while.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we've read about you and your ongoing efforts. Talk about relentless throughout the country. Your road show that you're going on, spreading the word about hand count, hand marked paper ballots. But before we get into that specifically, tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got involved in election integrity on such a grand scale.
Wow. Well, I started writing software when I was 10 years old, many, many years ago in the late 80s, because I found it very interesting and I loved turning something that I could come up with in my head into something I could see on the computer screen. And I became pretty darn good at it as a little kid. I wrote software to help support bulletin board systems back in the CompuServe and Prodigy America Online days of the screeching modems that some people may still remember. And so being in computer
Yep.
programming just prior to the age of the internet put me in kind of a unique spot because at that time, there were no real bad guys around online. There wasn't an online actually. It was just computer software that people were sharing over bulletin board systems. And so the concept of having to protect your system from a bad guy didn't really exist because we were just so thrilled that you could press a button on your keyboard and have something show up on someone else's screen, even down the street from you, was pretty incredible there. So the last thing we were thinking of was protecting ourselves from bad actors. And then as time went on, the bad guys kind of started showing up in that, and that's when viruses started showing up, and then antivirus software. Then things got online, got connected to the internet, and as soon as you start connecting things and centralizing things, you make everything much more susceptible to someone manipulating it in some way, and you make it more attractive for a bad person to manipulate something because it allows a bad person basically kind of remotely take advantage of someone, which we didn't have. If bad guys back in the day had to physically be in front of you to manipulate you or take advantage of you, but now we've created a system that allows bad people to do bad things from great distances. And so I have
Yeah.
jumped into the IT field right after that and helped create and support networks for small to medium businesses, all the way down to individuals at their homes, and built an IT company over probably 3+ decades, and that's what I've done. I have helped people not only with their computer systems, but network their computers, fix problems, find efficient ways to run their businesses by leveraging the computer systems and different hardware and software combinations that I could put together to make their lives easier. And then I got into cybersecurity and forensics, recovering data, and became kind of an expert in complex systems root cause analysis. So that's a fancy term for someone coming in and figuring out how this whole complex system works and getting to the root of what's causing a problem. A lot of people troubleshoot computer issues the old fashioned way of turn it off and turn it back on again. And if it starts working fine, then they say they solve the problem. That doesn't solve the problem in my book. All that does is cover the problem up, and it gets things maybe working for a little bit, but that kind of thing bugs me because I'm always thinking, well, what caused it in the first place? I don't care if you can turn it off and back on again and have it start working. I want to know what caused it to stop working, and then I want to address that so it never happens again. I never want the same call more than once. So that's my methodology. Fast forward the 2020 election. And I've never been political, never been involved in politics. I do IT, I don't do politics. But this election happened. I saw what occurred in the election going up to it. I was starting to pay more attention to the politics and notice kind of some dirty business going on. And, we all know politics is dirty. I didn't want anything to do with it, but I had no choice because I really felt our country was going in a direction that was concerning me. So I started paying more attention to the political side of things. Then we come up to an election. I'm watching election night and I see votes flip on screen in front of my very own eyes. I see votes go down in front of my eyes. And that's impossible. When you're counting votes, votes never go down. You can't fill out a ballot and choose to subtract votes from someone. You're only adding votes. So when I saw votes go down, I knew something was horribly wrong somewhere in the system. And then we came to the early morning when they stopped counting, and not just in one county, not just one state, but progressively throughout the entire United States. And it wasn't just all at once either. It was over a short period of time, one by one, the count stopped coming in. And I'm thinking as a computer guy, wait a minute. Where is the data flowing, and what would break in the system that would cause data to stop flowing in the manner that I am experiencing it on the screen? Stuff just doesn't show up on a computer screen. A computer puts writing on a screen, and that computer has to be fed the data from somewhere. And this was happening across multiple networks. Well, all the networks don't use the same system, so they must be getting a similar data feed. But it wasn't like the feed was just cut, because if the feed was cut, no one would have any updates across the entire country all at once. And that wasn't not happening. It was a staggered issue. And so I started to try to figure out, what are the mechanics behind all this? Where is the data flowing from the county? How does it get to the TV screen? And that's what I didn't know. And I started asking, and no one else knew that either. So the next morning, we wake up and it's like Twilight Zone. The results of the election seem to be totally contrary to what my reality was over the months leading up to the election. It just did not compute. It did not make sense to me. And then all the funny business on election night got me thinking. So I wanted to get to the bottom of.
Mark, let me ask you this real quick. Let me ask you something real quick, not to interrupt you, but this is really important. You said that the reality of what you saw really late on election night and the day following the election was inconsistent with what you had seen leading up to the election and your expectations. What had you seen, and what were your expectations going into the election?
Well, first of all, to set the stage, because a lot of people think this is partisan. This is not a partisan issue at all. I was a Democrat most of my life. I became a Republican later on in my life because I felt that the ideals that the Democrat Party were showing me seemed to be inconsistent with what my ideals were. And I think the Democrat Party changed at some point. I didn't realize when it changed, but I just realized at one point, wait a minute, we're not in line anymore. And so I thought the answer to that was, okay, well, I'll change parties. I didn't realize the the dirtiness on both sides and the games being played on both sides. So I've kind of been played by both parties now. So I'm a policy based voter. I want Ultimately, I want to be happy. I want my fellow citizens to be happy. I think we can all start with that framework. We all want happiness. I want happiness in a way that it doesn't affect someone else's ability to be happy. And I want to try to help everyone achieve happiness as well. So that's my methodology. That's what drives me. So what I saw going into campaign season and whatnot on the Trump side, on the conservative side, Republican side, I saw a very pro America, take care of your own family. I went to a lot of the rallies, and the media was portraying this group of people as these horrible fascists. But I was there on the ground at these rallies, and it was completely the opposite of that. It was a mixture of men and women of all colors and all religions and all sexual preferences. It was just Americans loving on America. And that was just such the opposite of the picture that the media was portraying. And I was very insulted that they were putting themselves in a position to lie to so many Americans that didn't have the opportunity to go and see this with their own eyes. And it was disgusting to me that our media would be lying. And then I started wondering, well, why is the media lying? to the country. Why would the media, and how are they lying? And why are they all saying the same thing? And how are they saying the same thing? Where are they getting the messaging from? It's so consistent across all the different outlets. Something something wasn't right. My spidey sense was going off like crazy at that point. So then it just made me more and more curious. I knew something sinister was going on. People were being deceived, and I do not like those that deceive others. I cannot stand those people, and I like to do what I can to make sure that they are inhibited from doing so. And that's what I'm kind of doing right now is I'm trying to expose those that are deceiving others, bring light to it, and hold them accountable.
But and looking at this objectively. So we go into this election. You went in, as I'm sure most Americans did, thinking it looks as though President Trump is going to win re-election here. We later find out that he wins 18 out of 19 bellwether counties, that he received historic numbers of minority vote across all demographics. So anecdotally, it looks like, how could this have happened? And then you are looking at it from a technical point of view, saying this is not possible that this could have happened from a technical point of view either. It's just objectively impossible that they just stop counting the data suddenly, and then you wake up the next day and it looks as though Biden has gained and Trump has lost. And interesting what you said, Mark, a minute ago, that you said that you watched on screen. And I want to make sure our listeners understand this. You saw on the screen Trump, in other words, votes being taken away from Trump. He's losing votes that apparently have already been tallied.
We all witnessed that, and I went to all the rallies. I saw how much support there was for Trump. I saw I went on I can't tell you how many Trump trains that I was on that would encircle the entire city of Denver, and I'm talking, you start at the beginning of the train, you drive for 6 hours all around the city, and by the time I got back to where the beginning was, there were still people in the parking lot that hadn't even left yet. I mean, in multiples of these. I mean, it was just insane the amount of people that were supporting this man. And then to see Colorado's results, totally the opposite of that, did not ring true to me at all. There's something was wrong. I saw how many Trump signs there were. I was all around Colorado. I saw all the support everywhere. And there is just no way that that was a legitimate result for Colorado for sure, because that's where I was at and that's what I saw. But yes, on the technical aspect, when I saw the numbers do that on screen, I knew that something technically was being manipulated without any question. And I wanted to find out what that was.
What did you find out?
Well, I didn't know much about our election system and how the mechanics of it worked at that point. I just knew that the output that I'm looking at seems to be technically manipulated. So, about a week after the election, I got a call and was asked if I'd go out to DC to try to help them figure out what happened with the election. And I'm a person at that point that had no idea, but I really wanted to know. I had the technical knowledge to understand these complex systems, but I had no access to it. So here I have an opportunity to go to DC to work with people that know more than I do and that might be able to get me access to something that I could look into to determine what the real truth is, because I can't trust the media. We know that. I knew they were lying to me, and the only thing I trusted was my own eyes. So I took the opportunity. I went out to DC, and I thought I was just going to sit there and look over some documents and explain to people, what a database is or how these systems worked, as I figured them out. And I ended up living in that hotel, the Westin Hotel in Arlington, Virginia, from that day that I arrived until December 24th. And the stuff I saw during that time, it was like living in a spy movie. It was a totally surreal experience. There were people there that were kind of adjacent, very politically oriented, adjacent to the White House, trying to figure out what happened. I was just a citizen, but I was all of a sudden put into the middle of everything we were seeing on the news across the nation. All those the lawsuits and Rudy and Sydney and the guy that was driving ballots, across in, pallets of ballots in his truck. I was right there in the middle of all this. Literally, I shook that guy's hand. And I was watching the media's portrayal of this whole thing while I was sitting in the middle of it. And sitting in the middle of it was a very unique perspective compared to what the media was telling the rest of the country. So, there was probably only a couple hundred people in this environment that really knew what was going on. And then we've got 300 plus million people that are sitting there desperately trying to figure it out. And it was bizarre. I mean, there were ex-intelligence agency people there. There were current intelligence agency people there. There were politicians and lawyers all over the place. I mean, I felt like a fish out of water. But the one thing that kept me there was my knowledge about the computer systems that are being used to run our election systems was pretty heavy because I have been using those same systems my whole life. I mean, for 33 decades, I've been using Windows.
Right. You've been securing people's systems, protecting people's resources and money for 30 years. So clearly, you are in a very good position to know when a computer based voting system is vulnerable.
Figured these computer voting systems, first I didn't know there was different systems used in different states, just like everyone else. I mean, no one ever questioned our election system, or very few people ever questioned it or looked into it. I imagine, other than a tiny handful of people I've run into that some of them have been fighting for 20 plus years to expose all this, but they have never gained any traction. But I started looking at this and I realized, oh my gosh, our voting systems are using the same software and hardware systems I use every day in all types of other businesses. Databases, Windows operating systems, Android operating systems, Linux operating systems. This is stuff I eat, sleep, and breathe. And they're connected by networks in a lot of cases. Some they're not, some they are. A lot of people are very confused, and there's so many people that don't know enough about this technically. Is that so many people jump to conclusions? They want to see what they want to see, and and then they run with it, and they're wrong, and then they get discredited, and then everyone around them gets discredited by association, and so that's been very frustrating too. I spend a lot of my time just educating people so they can intelligently discuss the problems, and so they don't chase something that doesn't exist. I don't want people going down, false rabbit holes. Let's focus on what the problem really is, rather than what someone just thinks it is without a basis or understanding the knowledge that would be needed to analyze it behind the scenes. So it's been a wild ride for sure. And in these systems, I'll jump to the summary. The summary statement is we are being lied to. We the people, including our election officials, are being lied to about these electronic voting systems, and not just the systems that tabulate our votes, but the systems that handle our voter registration, the systems that do the signature verification, the systems that handle the electronic poll book, and the reporting systems when our county clerks get the results out of their voting system that they just blindly trust in a lot of cases, which is a big mistake. But when they get those results and they hand those results off, they wash their hands of it. They don't have control of what happens to that after the fact. Now, if I was an election official, I would care. I would want to follow my results all the way to the end. And I'd want to work with all the other election officials in my position and make sure that all of our votes total up to what the total is that we are told. But no one does that because they aren't given access to that or ability to that. I'm shocked across the whole country, 3,100 plus counties. How on earth has no one said, you know what, I'm going to take the lead on this. I'm going to go get the results from each of these counties, ideally precincts, and I'm going to add them up and make sure that they total up to what they're showing us on the TV screen. Nobody has done that.
That seems pretty basic.
It seems very basic.
And you've come to the conclusion here, Mark, you've come to the conclusion here based on everything that you've seen that the only way to secure our voting system in the United States is through hand marked, hand counted paper ballots. Is that right?
It's not all of it. That's only a small portion of it. And that's another mistake people make just because they don't take the time to understand the entire ecosystem. If the election system, I've broken into four main legs of the stool, and they are the following here: voter registration system, a voter validation system, tabulation, and reporting. Those are the four legs of the stool. The voter registration system controls who gets a ballot and who's an active voter. The voter validation system is supposed to protect this mass mail out of ballots to make sure that when someone comes to vote or they send a ballot in by mail, which is ridiculous, that is a valid ballot and allowed to be tabulated in the third leg of the stool. Then the third leg is that's the point, the part that everyone talks about. That's the black boxes that count our votes. And that's a big problem too, but it's not the only problem. And then the reporting is what I talked about a few minutes ago when the clerks get the totals from their voting system and they hand it off. What happens from that point all the way to when it shows up on the TV screen? So if any one of those four legs of the election stool are compromised, and we can't trust the results coming out of it, we can't trust the results at the very end of it either. And what we have is we've got a system that each of those four legs has massive vulnerabilities. And the citizens have lost control of all of them. Back in the day, the citizens used to have control of the election ecosystem, and our election officials had control of it as well. To register to vote, you went into the county and you filled out a voter registration card. How did they know you were the one that signed that voter registration card? Well, you were there. You had your body there. You signed it in front of them. So that was a physical validation that the person that signed that card was indeed you. And did you have to physically exist in that county to fill that out? Of course. Unless you have a really long arm, you had to be in the county and you were in that county building. So then that voter registration card got filled out. Now you're in the county building, so it's very easy for them to confirm that you are a resident in that county. Who would be better than the county themselves to know that you live in the county? So you had a very tightly controlled system to create a voter registration. You had a physical validation, physical verification of the individual filling that card out. Well, we've disconnected that. Now we created a system that allows virtual registration records to show up. You no longer have to be present to get a registration record in the voter registration system. That means that anyone can get a registration record put into that system, whether it's a hacker, whether it's someone in the company that wrote the software that has access to the database, or someone else that's found a way to access the database, or something called an API where this NGO is given permission to be able to create voter registration records into this database. Or you even give people a valid way, go to a website and fill it out, and you can register to vote online. Well, how do you know who's filling out that web page? There is no way to know who's filling out the web page. So what you've done, you've sold people on convenience, and you've actually just created a hugely vulnerable system that allows virtual voter registration records to be put into that database. So now you don't have any control over the records going in the database. Then you send ballots out everywhere, and ballots go out to every record in that database. So if I, as a bad guy, wanted to stuff 50,000 entries into that database, I could do that. And that would be another 50,000 ballots that got mailed out. It's that easy. Good people don't think like evil people. So good people don't ask, well, how could this system be abused by a bad guy? They just look at the good side of it. Oh, it makes it more convenient. Problem is, it makes it 1,000 sometimes more convenient for the bad guys too. And you have to think about that. And you can never trade security for convenience. Yeah. So then in the old days, again, so you have the physical voter registration card you filled out in person. You showed up at your precinct, and they already knew who was going to show up at the precinct because when you filled that voter registration card out, they knew what precinct you were in based on your residency, and it went in a stack for your precinct. So now you're at the precinct on voting day, and that stack of cards for that precinct are now in the precinct physically, and your card is in that deck. And you're also printed out on a list. It's called a paper poll book. So when you walk in, they already know that you are a potential voter that's going to walk through that door. They find you on the list, you sign your signature again there, and then they pull your voter registration card out of the stack, the one you filled out in person earlier, and they compare those two signatures. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's the same as signature verification on a mail-in ballot. No, it's not. It's very different, and here's why. Because the signature on the voter registration card was physically signed by you, and you had presence in the county when you did that, in the county building. The signature you just put on the paper poll book was physically done by you in person also. That's a physical verification that did not exist otherwise. And so they know it's you right then. And they hand you a ballot. You fill the ballot out, you put it in a box. At the end of the day, they open the box and they counted the ballots right there. This term is really important. Counted where cast. That is critical to a safe election system. Why that's critical is because when you have time or space between events in an election, that is where manipulation can occur. So when you have a box of ballots, you don't want to wait till the next morning to count those ballots because what happens between the polls close and the next morning? We open ourselves up for abuse there. You also don't want to take that box of ballots and move it to another room or to another building or to another city to count them because then what happens in between there? That's the space component. You remove time and space. You count the ballots out of the box right there without moving the box, and you count them immediately when the polls close. You remove the time and you remove the space. And that way, you remove the ability for someone to manipulate that. And then they got the results because they counted it by hand right there. And then they called the results in to the county and then brought all the paperwork to the county after the fact. That was a very transparent way to do it. The citizens ran pretty much all of it. And the election officials just took the totals and they totaled all the precincts up for the county totals. That was our whole system. And we used that system for hundreds of years. And then these criminals decided, well, if we want to really run the show, one way to do it, instead of fighting these citizens that have this legal system and they've got judges and police officers and they're all out to get us because they don't like us criminals, what if we became the judges and we became the police and we became the legislators and the prosecuting attorneys? Or we became the president of the United States? How could we do that? Well, we're smart. What if we wrote software and we created these systems? We sold these systems to the citizens, told them that it'll make their elections convenient and better and faster. We might even mess up their existing systems a little bit to kind of channelize them into buying the systems we set up to convince them they need it. We'll sell it to them. We'll make a whole bunch of money by selling them these systems, these Trojan horses. And then we'll use the systems to manipulate the election while it looks like to them that they're still part of the voting process. And we'll put themselves in all these places and they'll have no control of it, even though they'll think they have control of it. And that's essentially what we've had happen.
This is incredible.
So, as you're speaking, I have this visual of just a giant spider's web that needs to be completely dismantled because we're so far deep into this. How do we get there? How do we cut the crap, get rid of all this nonsense that is really subverting the will of the people at every step of the game, and move back to a place where the citizens are in control of elections.
Well, we have to take back control of our election system. It was taken from us over a period of decades, and it was death by 1,000 cuts. And you cannot fix 1,000 cuts with one Band-Aid. And there's not a big enough Band-Aid to fix it all. So it's going to take 1,000 Band-Aids to fix these 1,000 cuts. And the Band-Aids are not complicated. First of all, we've got to get people knowledgeable about what's going on. If they don't know what the whole plan of these bad guys is and what they've done, they won't understand where they are in this. We've got to educate people so they understand all the problems that they're experiencing in their life, everything they're seeing with the election. This is not random occurrences. There's a reason behind all this stuff. And so it's really important to help educate people about that. And your show is doing just that. That's getting this information out to people is critical for every person. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. I don't care what side of the aisle anyone's on. I am perfectly happy to disagree with people on policy, but we have to have an election system that 100% accurately represents the will of every single one of us. Every person's vote must count, and let the best man or woman win. That's fine, but we have to have a system that accurately measures our will. And so we need to expose how the system is supposed to work. We need to expose how the system is working, expose all the vulnerabilities in the existing system. We need to prove to people that those vulnerabilities are being abused because people want to see proof. And we have so much proof now, it's very simple to line it all up. I'm always happy to walk anyone through it if they'd like. And then we need to show people, well, how do we actually stop the bleeding? How do we fix this? Well, a number of different things we need to do. We've got to disconnect the virtual aspect of our voter registration system. We need to make sure that you can only register to vote if you show up in person in the county you live in. And if you live in that county, it should not be a problem to show up because you live there. If you don't live there, then you shouldn't be registering there. We have to do that. Register to vote only in your county. We should really wipe all the voter registration databases because they are all such a disaster. It is not reasonable to try to clean them up at this point. It's going to take tremendous amount of resources. The smartest thing to do is say, okay, from this point forward, everyone's going to re-register to vote at your county. That's it. And give them plenty of time to do so. Give them a year to register to vote in the county building. You take those voter registration cards.
So, Mark, on that point, we have some legislation right here in Louisiana that's going through the legislature that would require an annual supplemental canvass of every registered voter in the state of Louisiana, and it's estimated to be 600,000 or 700,000 who are on the voter rolls who shouldn't be there. Are you saying that problem in itself is too big of a problem to be able to handle, to be able to clean the voter rolls through that supplemental canvas and get the bad folks off of there? You're saying we have to just completely dismantle it and start over?
I'm saying if you look at it based on efficiency, trying to clean up that system is going to be really inefficient and you're not going to get it all. If you want to be smart about the time and resources that are put into it, the best thing to do is move the system to the county, put the power and the control of the voter registration system back into the hands of the county officials that we are quote unquote electing, that are supposed to be responsible for this in the first place, and just have everyone re-register to vote. That is the smarter, more efficient way to do it than to try to clean up a system that once you clean it up, you're going to still use the same system, which means we already have a system that is abusable. So, and it's been abused. So we have all these extra records in it. We're going to spend all these resources to clean all these records up. And then the people that abused it in the first place are just going to abuse it again. And we're going to be right back where we started after investing all this time and effort. That's my crystal ball. And I think that's exactly what will happen unless we get smart and efficient about it.
What's the best way to keep on top of that? Do you say like every couple years, just delete the whole things again and make people go back and do it again?
What we need to do is make people re-register. We have to. I got to re-register for my emissions almost on a yearly basis. For a car, you got to get a fishing license regularly. You got to renew your driver's license regularly. And our election system is so critical to everything that happens in our country. Our election system is the most valuable asset we have as Americans. And because of that, it is the most high value target to someone that would want to manipulate that. Therefore, we have to be very cautious and careful with our election system, and we have to employ every possible way to secure it. So I think it validates and justifies re-registering to vote, I would say at the most every 2 years, if not every year. I would not let it go beyond that because their little game is to just keep as many records in the voter registration database as they can so they can justify the additional ballots that are being stuffed in. Their game, most of it is we got real voters that are voting and they know what they want the results of the elections to be, but they have to have a bridge to get from the real votes to sway an election to get to the results they want. And that bridge is injecting extra votes into the system to counter the real votes, to supplement the real votes, to shift the votes. And so they can only do that in the headroom between the number of registered voters and the people that actually vote. They can't stuff a whole bunch more ballots in than there are registered voters, or us little peons might realize that, hey, wait a minute, there's 110% turnout. How do you have more votes than voters? So what they try to do is create as much headroom as possible. So they inject as many voter registrations in the system as they can in order to create lots of headroom for them to use. And if they're injecting these entries in, they know they're not going to be real votes in the system that are attached to those entries. And so that gives them what they need to manipulate with. So what they want to do is they want to create a system that allows them to keep as many phantom records in the voter registration databases as possible. So they have the headroom to manipulate an election. So any system that allows them to keep headroom in there is not going to help the citizens. We have to go to a system that does not allow any extra headroom. And by forcing people to re-register at least every 2 years, if not every year, that's going to help clean that system out and keep it clean. Now, people are going to complain, well, you're disenfranchising me by making me go re-register every year. But let me give you the counter to that. If there is an illegitimate vote in the system that gets counted, that illegitimate vote already disenfranchises a citizen. So if we allow illegitimate votes in the system, allow illegitimate entries in our voter registration database, we are disenfranchising citizens by that. The vulnerability of our system is what is disenfranchising Americans. And that's what people have to realize. We have to close the holes so we stop the disenfranchisement, because when people stuff votes in a system, it disenfranchises real voters natively.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping, that helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at Danielle@freedomstate.us for more information. And what you were saying, Mark, resonates with me so much. We talked to Tina Peters not too long ago, and she talked about re-registering every 2 years as an example. And, you were talking about the fact that people have to go and get their emissions checked every year. Well, what would the IRS say if I said, you know what, I'm just going to not send in my tax return every year? I feel disenfranchised. I don't feel like my taxes are being well spent. I'm not going to. So I guess that it's time for the citizens to stand up and demand that the system serves them. And this is the way that the system would serve them.
That's one way to put a big band-aid on this. And it's not even a band-aid. That's how you actually start to fix it. Move voter registration back to the counties. Now, another argument people have is, well, how do we stop people from double voting then? Okay, well, it's very easy. First of all, the systems were centralized. The voter registration systems were taken from the counties because the states wanted to take control of it, and then a lot of the states just outsourced it to another company. Never should have been taken from the counties in the first place. Some stupid people took part in moving it because they didn't think about what a bad guy would do with a centralized voter registration system. And I think some criminals also were part of that. And there's probably a group of criminals and a group of just ignorant people that didn't know any better. And they should have done their due diligence on it and should have said, no, this is a horrible idea. We should never do this. Here's how you fix it. You move it back to the county, and then the counties all must publish their voter registration records in a read-only fashion, meaning you can share what you've got, and you must share what you have with everyone, with all the other counties, but they can't make changes to your system. All the changes are locked in the county. The county is the only place that can make changes. If you did that, then you have the best of both worlds. The counties retain their control of the system, and then all the other counties get to share their data together, and they get to check their own database against all the other counties in the country. You make it their responsibility to check their records against all the other records in the country. And if everyone did it that way, that is the safest, most secure, most transparent, and most decentralized way to do it. That's the right way. We went the wrong way. And when you take a wrong turn when you're driving, you don't just keep wandering around. Sometimes you just go back to where you took the wrong turn and take the right turn. And that's what's happened with our election system. So that's the one leg. That's the voter registration. That's how we fix it right there. And that's basically a bullseye fix for our voter registration system.
Is there any around
Then
the state, though, Mark? So on that point there, the voter registration system, the way you just described it, as you look around the country and based on what you've seen, is there a model to look at, to emulate?
before these electronic voter registration systems, the centralization of it, it all used to be done that way. The counties did handle all of it. They had voter registration
But
cards.
now,
You filled, I mean, you
talking about now, what's going on? Like, for if you're looking at another state, is there any state or secretary of state in a given state that is doing this in a way that's more closely aligned to the way you just described?
there are counties around the country that I have seen that the counties themselves do handle their voter registration as much as they can, but in most cases, the state has forced their hand and taken it from them. Now, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's necessarily even constitutional. I think some county sheriffs need to stand behind their county officials and say, no, thank you. We are going to handle our voter registration ourselves. We'll take your input, but you will not have control over our voter registration records. We will control them. That step needs to be taken. And I'm happy to work with any sheriff, any county officials to help guide them in the best way I can to help us get to that point. We have to decentralize this system again. Our government was set up as a decentralized form of government for a reason, and that was to make sure that the power was always in the hands of the people.
Or the officials who are or the officials who are closest to the people, because our government by definition involves a delegation of our sovereignty to government. We have to do that in order to exist in a civil society. But I think what you're saying is, when we delegate it, we should be delegating it to leaders who are the closest to us, not the farthest away from us.
And more importantly, we need to, if we're going to delegate anything, it needs to be delegated to people we actually elect, not people that can be selected with a system that can be easily manipulated. That's really important. So we have to have a decentralized election system to support a decentralized government. As soon as you start centralizing the election system, your government will follow. And that's what we are living through right now. We centralized our election system, or allowed it to be centralized very stupidly. And now we are seeing the centralization of our government following that. So if we want to fix all this, we decentralize our election system, shine a big light on it, make it really simple, easy for everyone to understand, make it so visible everyone can see it and everyone can verify every aspect of it. And if we do that, we then pour the foundation for taking our entire country back and putting it back into the hands of the citizens again. That's all we have to do. It's simple as that. Move our election system back to the counties, back to the people, simplify it, make it transparent, shine a light on it, make our election officials absolute heroes for providing us all of the information about the election, the ballot images, the video of the tabulation, welcoming all the citizens in to be a part of the whole thing. We should be running it ourselves, and the election officials really should just train us and help coordinate us, but we should be the ones doing it. And that means American citizens have to get off their butts and actually take part in their
Yeah.
elections.
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
do it, is if you don't do it, someone's going to do it for you, and that's what exactly what put us in this position in the first place. So if you want to maintain your freedom in this country, all you have to do is get off your butt one day a year and take part in ensuring the integrity of your election system. And it is our duty to do so.
What do you see that's encouraging you right now? Any developments that are uncovering things that have been covered, or any people taking big steps forward, anybody getting prosecuted? What's your highlight reel right now that's keeping you going?
Well, a big one just happened yesterday where this elderly gentleman and his wife uh, saw me in a parking lot. And they had actually been to one of my presentations about a week before, and they happened to see my trailer, and they came by to see if that was me. And they said that I touched them so much, and they were so lost and felt so helpless. And this gentleman was a law enforcement officer. He was a police officer for over 40 years. And I mean, the guy's, in his late 80s. And he said, my wife and I, we only make $18,000 a year, but we want to give you, and they got together and $1,000. I mean, think of that. This couple, they live on $18,000 a year, and they know I'm doing this out of my savings as well, and fuel's expensive, and I'm trying to do everything I can, and I have to rely on the citizens to help me keep this journey going. But they gave up an 18th of their year, and they insisted that I take it and use it to continue fueling my journey.
That is
So
powerful.
and that poor man, I mean, his hand was shaking. He had nerve damage in it from being a law enforcement officer, and hand was shaking so much he could barely hand me. And he was just they were so proud, and they were so thankful for someone stepping up to try to help them because of how lost and hopeless they were prior. And that right there absolutely does fuel me, is because I know there are so many hundreds of millions of Americans that are so scared and lost, and they're upset, and they don't know what's going on. They don't know why. They feel helpless. They're waiting for someone to save them. And I'll tell you, I don't think anyone's just coming to save us. I really don't. I think it's going to take brave people like you guys, who everyone takes their skills and ignores fear and just charges forward with what's right, with truth and honesty and integrity. And I think that's how we crush these evil forces that have taken over our world. This is a spiritual battle, and people in other countries are going through the same thing we are here in this country. They're dealing with evil people that have tried to take their freedoms away and that are trying to enslave humanity and destroy humanity. So it's going to take people brave, step up, do what's right, do what's in your heart without fear, eyes wide open. And I do feel we're going to win this. There's no question. There's so many more just good people in the world, and people want peace. People want happiness.
Yep, people are
People just have
waking
to
up.
stop being scared and crush it.
Yeah, and Mark, I got to tell you, people seem to be waking up more and more every day. And speaking of winning, what do you see for this presidential election cycle? Obviously, you've been citing the concerns. In light of those concerns and the existing infrastructure that we have now, what are Trump's chances? What needs to be done in the short term for him to win? Because we need him.
And let me ask on top of that, what do
Yeah.
you think about the rhetoric of too big to rig in that context?
Okay. All right. So, first of all, we don't need Trump. I want Trump. It would be great to have Trump in this. Trump is just a man like all, no different than any of us. But man, he is incredibly fearless and brave. And he's been through so many challenges in his life that have just made him an incredible warrior in all this. And he has a unique insight. So I think he's our best shot at really having someone on the inside to help us clean this whole thing up. But Trump cannot do it alone. Trump tried to do it himself in 2016, and the problem was we weren't there. We all thought, "Oh, we got him in. We did great. Now he's going to drain the swamp and everything's good." Well, the swamp was far deeper than he thought, and he didn't have the support that he needed to drain the swamp of that size. So the difference is now is he's going to have a whole lot of us. And I can tell you, he's got me. And if this is the last thing I ever do in my life, I'm here and I'm going to follow it through until to the end because I want to fix this for all of humanity, not just for my country. So I don't want to put everything on Trump because the citizens of this country, we have to fix this regardless,
Yeah, we have
no
to
matter
fix it.
what.
No
And
question.
hopefully we can do it alongside Trump's side. And we need to have his back and we need to be standing right beside him. And we all need to do this together. This is a group effort of good people in this country crushing the evil that has perpetrated all this upon them. So, how we do it? Well, they can only cheat so much. So, back to the too big to rig. Absolutely. It needs to be too big to rig. I've heard some people say, well, the whole thing's fixed, so I'm not going to vote. That is the stupidest thing anyone could ever say because a lot of it is rigged, but they can't out rig if everyone votes. If every single person that could vote votes, they can't rig it. And so people need to vote like they have never voted before. And I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent vote. I want real votes in that system and let the best person win. Let the person that truly gets the most votes win whatever these races are. And it's not just about the presidential. We have a lot of down ballots as well. And my gut feeling is what these psychopaths are going to do is I think they know there's no way they can stop Trump. Trump has only gained support. Everyone's eyes are on it. Everyone knows, or everyone's starting to figure out how fixed the system really is. And I truly think we're going to have an incredible amount of people go out and vote. My one fear is that they will fake a lot of these polls and get people to think Trump's going to win by a landslide. So people that would vote for Trump don't bother voting. Do not fall for that. You vote regardless. Assume he's going to lose by, every vote. You need to go out and vote regardless. So I think what they might do strategically is allow the Trump win and then steal all the down ballots, because that will pacify most of America that don't think very deep into this. And they'll say, oh, we got Trump in there. We're good. We won. Now we can sit on our butts and do nothing again. And they'll ignore all the down ballots that they just lost. Well, those down ballot races are the ones that affect them the most. The people that actually run their counties and their state, they really need to be paying attention to that and represent them. They've got to pay attention to those down ballots. They're critical. But I think that's what may happen. And then what they'll do is they'll say, okay, all you election deniers are clearly crazy because you said it's all fixed. So clearly it's not, because Trump won. And they'll use that to, mock all the election deniers. So I think that's the game that they're going to play. And I think we shouldn't be surprised if they do that, but we can be prepared for it too. We can call it out right now, and they can prove us right, or they can not do it. But regardless, we need to pay attention to not only Trump, all the down ballots, and vote in force. We need to audit everything. We need to have eyes everywhere. If you are not working the election, you need to go apply to work the election. We need poll watchers. We need all the volunteers possible. We need people analyzing data after the fact. Do not go in and attack your election official. Your election official, very few of them are corrupt from what I have found. Most all election officials I've seen are good, honest, patriotic American citizens who are only being given so much access to the election system. They're not really able to run the election system. The vendors run the election system. The corporation, the state runs the election. They're just in there plugging things in and pushing buttons. And they are threatened that if they don't do it this way, they'll go to jail. So their hands are tied. They can't even do their patriotic duty. So what we need to do as citizens is stand by our election officials, side by side them, and help them reclaim the control of the election system, or at least check every part of it to make sure it is clean and protected and accurate. For their counties, we need to work hand in hand with them and stop falling for all this. I mean, I've got a list of things that are 1,000 long to go through every aspect of our election, what we need to do to correct and mitigate each of these vulnerabilities. So it's far too much data to go over in a few minutes. But generally, we got to get involved, pay attention, keep our eyes open, work together, unite as citizens, go arm in arm with Democrats and independents to all want a fair, accurate election system that 100% reflects all of our will and that there's no manipulation in.
Yeah, and Mark, for Louisiana specifically, we are 100% Dominion state with completely unauditable elections. Our Secretary of State is full bore committed to spending about $100 million on new machines for the whole state. The Secretary of State, actually, our state is a top down state, so it's going to affect every single parish, whatever contract she gets into. In turn, let's say we have, like, our hands are tied. Let's say they are. We're going to fight like hell to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if it does happen and we have to see ourselves with new machines, what would be the best case scenario of any machine we could possibly have to deal with?
Get new machines. Every iteration of these is what they do is they get better and better at obfuscating our ability to see the election, and they hide the manipulation better and better with each iteration. So we got to get rid of all the machines. A lot of the secretaries of state are captured. They're selected, they're bribed, they're pressured, they're blackmailed, and the county attorneys, most of them were captured as well, and some clerks were captured. But that's what Soros and the group went after was Secretary of State's, and a lot of people are realizing the county attorneys also, and I've seen that everywhere. Is the clerks can't even answer a question without having to look at the county attorney, and the county attorney is really making all the calls, and they tell the clerk, well, you if you do this, you could open yourself up to a lawsuit, and I'm not going to be there to help you, which is ridiculous because the county attorney is supposed to be there to back up the clerks, but they're actually telling local election officials what to do and then threatening not to be there to protect them. It's absurd. The other people to watch out for, and I don't think all of them have been taken, but uh, county IT staff. There are people that they've had infiltrate county IT departments. So the county IT staff that sets up the networks and sets up the actual computers for the voting systems. I've seen a few of them, interestingly, have been trained at the voting system companies, and then all of a sudden they become county IT staff. That's kind of an odd thing. So I'd be on the lookout for that. Your Secretary of State, I don't know who it is, but your Secretary of State is either an idiot or in on it. And I don't know which, but I'd be more than happy to talk to your Secretary of State because if they are just ignorant of it, I'll help them be not ignorant so they can understand what they are actually doing to their citizens. And if they truly do care about their state and care about their citizens, it would probably be really smart to sit down with me for a few hours and go over that so I can help open their eyes and they can take it or leave it afterward. I'm happy to do that. Now, if they're corrupt and benefiting from it, they're not going to want anything to do with me. So, make the offer and see. And as far as Dominion goes, um, those guys are absolute liars. They have misled so many election officials and so many people all over the country. We've got them dead to right. I've got so much evidence to show these people are absolutely a joke. They've misrepresented so many things about their software, and you should see what they're doing behind the scenes and all these internal emails that Sheriff Darley from Michigan has released now. Uh, Anyone that is still using Dominion voting systems for any election from this point forward should be put on notice that they are going to be held accountable and responsible for every consequence of any election that they run on these systems because all eyes are on them. And Dominion, feel free to contact me. I'd love to sit and have a chat with you.
We're going to have Mark. We'll have to have you down here, and we're going to. We have, and we will continue to reach out to our Secretary of State and try to get you down here because this is information that they've got to be aware of, and they've got to act on. We can't invest $100 million in Dominion voting machines. It's just like it's an exercise in political suicide to do that. Now we did have Mac Warner on our show, who is running for governor up in West Virginia, and we asked him about the voting system that they're using in West Virginia. Now they don't have Dominion; I believe it's ES&S. You can correct me on this if I'm wrong, Danielle. But he did not, and he is a solid person to us. I mean, he seems like a good man, a good candidate, and you're very much of a Trump supporter. But he didn't seem to sound the alarm on the ES&S voting system. So I take it maybe there is a distinction. Are all machine-based voting systems equally vulnerable?
Well, I tell you, on the Dominion system, just a couple of the things that I found, and I found it very early on back in 2021. Do you know there's at least two back doors built into the Dominion voting system that allows someone to go in and flip results for an election and modify parts of the election to all they like without any logging or any tracing ability? And in every Dominion system I've examined has these back doors in it. But does Dominion tell anyone about them? No, they don't say a word. And does your Secretary of State know about the back doors in their Dominion voting system that have been in there for probably well over 10 years in multiple versions of Dominion, would be my guess. I've seen it in a couple so far. Um, are they aware of that? Do they care? I think that's really important. Now, here's what's crazy about this. There's only a couple testing labs that test all of the voting systems. So Dominion, with these the 2 back doors as an example. And one of the back doors, just so you know how hard it is to find, it was right on the start menu. You clicked on start and one more mouse click and it shows up. So it wasn't hidden. It was right out there in the open in the menu in a piece of software that wasn't even listed as the software that was supposed to be on the system in the first place. So the testing labs somehow missed that. A blatant backdoor right on there, a piece of software that wasn't even supposed to be there. They missed that. If the testing lab was so incompetent to miss this year after year after year, after other reports have come out talking about it, so it's not like they can claim they didn't know. How much do you trust those testing labs that tested and then certified this Dominion software? Not at all, right? They're either completely incompetent or they're in on it. Okay, so either way, I don't trust them. If they're in on it, I don't trust them. If they're incompetent, I don't trust them. The same testing labs tested ES&S and Heart and Unison and the other voting systems. So those and all these secretaries of state are basing their opinions on blind trust of the testing labs and the certification companies. So I'll reiterate, the testing labs and certification companies missed the blatant backdoors right in the Dominion voting systems year after year after year, and they tested all the other voting systems too. What'd they miss on those? I wouldn't trust a single thing that was tested or certified by any of those companies. In fact, what I would do is I would completely reevaluate all of them by hiring an independent party to come in and actually shine a light on the truth. And I would be more than happy to do so. I'd be more than happy to look at any of these systems and let our election officials and our county officials, state officials, I would love to let them know the truth and expose all the lies that they have been told.
Well, we're going to do all that we can to make that happen, all that we can to get you down here. And because this is a truth that has to be told, it just has to be told. And we could still stop this here in our state if we put forward the evidence and continue to put pressure on our Secretary of State. And this has to be stopped. This is not optional.
I'll tell you what, for Dominion, if you guys are all Dominion, this shouldn't even be a question. Seriously, every single state that is using Dominion, they should be tossing these things all in the garbage can right now and opening up a massive investigation on every single person at Dominion voting systems and everyone connected to it and every bit of money that went in or out of them. Because these people are blatantly lying. There is no question. There's plenty of evidence to substantiate it. All the people in Serbia that actually work at Dominion, the access to source code, the access to their systems, the whole serve you potential compromise of their systems right before the 2020 election. I mean, lie after lie, obfuscation after obfuscation. Everyone should be running as fast as they can from that company. And I would take a deep look at all of the others as well. We have to protect our elections. And the only way we can do it right now is we need to probably have some type of emergency order and go back to voting, having everyone re register and then vote at your precinct in your county. We have plenty of time to put together an emergency procedure to do that. In fact, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for people, even the citizens, to put that together for their state, for their counties, and start talking about it now. Because if something does trigger someone and they finally say, okay, we need to implement something, we finally get it, um, you don't want to get caught with your pants down. So I would start working on an emergency procedure right now. Let's just say that at some point, everyone realizes collectively that we can't trust any of these electronic systems, the voter registration, the validation, the mail-in ballots, the tabulation, or the reporting. What do we need to do as an emergency to save our country? How do we make sure we accurately measure the will of every American citizen in each precinct? We should put those procedures together right now just so we got them in our back pocket.
I love it. And Chris, we have a couple options here in Louisiana. We can put pressure on the Secretary of State. Isn't there an election advisory board that needs to be made aware of this? They can take action, and then we have the legislature as well. I think we should probably also look at our AG's office and the governor's office on this. So we definitely have some homework cut out for us.
We do, and Mark, this will come as
Contact all of them.
yeah, this will come as no surprise to you, Mark. But there is this there is a great deal of institutional resistance on the part of clerks across the state, election officials generally, and I think it's that they do not want to know the truth. Because if they learned the truth about how vulnerable we are, then that would require them ethically to make changes that need to be made. So I think to some degree, if not to a large degree, their ignorance is willful ignorance. And so, people change is not easy for people or for institutions. And when you've been doing something the same way for a long, long time, sometimes people don't want to know the truth because that would require them to make the changes that they don't really want to make.
Well, here's what else is going on. It's not just that. Put yourself in the shoes of an election official. You've believed the people above you. You believe your bosses. You believe the Secretary of State. You just blindly trusted that they knew better because you're not an IT expert. You don't know all this stuff. You're just there to do your job. And there's, clerks have other positions as well, and there's other job aspects that
Functions.
they've got to work
Yeah.
on, right? Other functions. But they've run elections. They've blindly believed all the stuff they were told. They have bought into it. And they have told family and friends and all their citizens, they've passed on the lie that they were told. And so all these people have just blindly believed them as well. Can you imagine the absolute fear that someone would feel to even consider that they lied to all of these people, even if they didn't know? Can you imagine having to admit that you were wrong and you misled them and you might be the reason why these laws got passed in your county and you were supposed to protect your election system and you actually let all of your citizens down? Can you imagine the weight on their shoulders? So here's what we need to do. We need to acknowledge that that is something that they're feeling because I know they are. I know there are those out there that just they don't even want to open their eyes because if they have to admit that, that is so frightening to them. What we need to do as citizens is we need to forgive. We need to let our election officials know that if you were lied to, that is not your fault. We will stand beside you and we will work with you. This is not all on you. This is just going to be a group effort. We're all going to have to get our hands dirty on this one. And we're not going to put the weight of it all on our election officials. This is a colossal group of people that lied to our election officials that are trying to do their civic duty. We have to, as American citizens, stand beside our fellow citizens and work with them to solve this problem. So go in there and hug your election official instead of try to poke them with the pitchfork and tell them, listen, if at some point you realize that others were lying to you, I stand beside you and I will help you fix this. You let me know, but you got one person that you can count on. Or, put some groups together and go in there and say, hey, listen, we got 300 people here that all are here to support you. And we know that there's some stuff going on that's possibly behind your back that you might not even be aware of yet. When and if you become aware of it, know that you've got a group of people here that have your back, and we will work with you and try to help you clean this all up for our county here. That's how I would approach it with our
And we're
officials. I
all in
think
it
that's what
together. Yeah.
we are all
And
in it
we're all
together.
in it
Yeah.
together, Mark. We're all in it together. Well, you have been absolutely enlightening to us today, and the way you've explained all of this is extraordinary. And not a whole lot of people have that degree of knowledge of precisely what this threat is that you have. So thank you for joining us. And we are going to absolutely spread this out, and we're going to work on getting you down here to meet you in person as well.
I'll help anyone I can.
Thank you. How can people support your work and find out more about what you've got going on?
Sure. I've got a website, handcountroadshow.org. And what I've done is I tried at the federal level, I tried at the state level years ago, and I couldn't get enough movement because there were so many people blocking efforts for me to get this information to the citizens so we could make a change and fix this problem. So I realized the best way I can do it is just go visit people in their counties, work with them, talk to them, find out what's going on in the county. It helps me see the big picture also. So I've gained a lot of knowledge by actually going boots on the ground with the fellow citizens to see what they're experiencing. And I'll tell you, the pattern becomes really obvious when you start doing that. So what I ended up doing, and I just felt it's such loss for trying to help fix this for my country. I bought a trailer and a truck, and I decided I'm just going to travel state to state, county to county, and visit with the citizens, be there to offer my services, my information, my knowledge, my experience, do public presentations, have private meetings with election officials or sheriffs or anyone I can to help educate them and offer them everything I've got to offer. And so I created handcountroadshow.org, which is the website that keeps track of all my events and my journey across the country. I'm in 2 weeks, I will have lived in this trailer for 1 year. It is, I can't even believe I've been living in a trailer for a
Wow.
year,
I can
traveling the
relate to
country.
that, believe it or not. Well, I didn't
It's
travel, but I lived in the trailer.
Well, I want to get a tour of the trailer. I want a tour of the trailer.
no problem. It's been amazing to see and meet all these wonderful people across this country, and all these amazing patriots, and some people that think I'm evil and wrong and hate me. I'm still happy and proud to fight for their freedoms too. They'll come around when they realize what's really going on. And I do have some of them call me from time to time, said, you know what, I didn't realize it, but I get it. I totally understand it now. Thanks for helping open my eyes. Or I wasn't ready at that time, but now I get it. And I'm really enjoying this journey. So I've got on there my events. I usually don't schedule the future events, but sometimes a week or two before, because I'm a one man show. It's really hard to plan this whole journey, plan everything at all the counties, and try to find the right citizens. And I'm really just going off, um, doing everything I can with the little bit of resources I've got. I'm living out of my savings account, which is dwindling. So certainly, if anyone wants to help, I'm more than I hate asking for help. I'm an independent person. I don't like to be a burden on anyone, uh, but I can say my savings is not gonna last me the rest of the year, and so if anyone does wanna help make a difference, I proudly put what I do right on the site, and as I travel, there's a donate link on handcountroadshow.org. You can certainly donate. I get about 8 miles per gallon on my truck, and RV parks are a little expensive, and I like to put some food in my belly once in a while too. So if anyone wants to help me along the journey, I will happily accept any assistance. And the coolest thing about the donate page is this, and this is what I love about it. The comments that people leave on the donate page mean the actual most to me. And hearing what people have to say across the country as they help. And I don't care if it's $1 donation. I just like to see what they write. So I appreciate all the comments.
Mark Cook, what a blessing you are to America, man. That's all I can say. It's hard to put into words the powerful influence that you're having on people across the country. And we're going to do everything we can to support you, continue to help you. And we're just so happy that you're there. You have the spirit of 1776, and we're glad to be on board with you.
Hey, if not me, who? And I'll tell you what, Trump and his whole family also, they sacrificed everything for us. And so many people, so many patriots, real American citizens have sacrificed everything. You know, every people are getting attacked everywhere. You know, Bannon, Peter Navarro, Rudy, Sidney. These are just people. These are American citizens. I know that the left or I don't want to say the left. The cabal paints them as the Antichrist. They're not. I've met a lot of them. They're good people, and the cabal just doesn't want the citizens to know the truth. and they want to destroy people's reputations so no one listens to them. Well, these are your fellow American citizens. If someone tells you not to listen to what someone says, what I'd recommend is you need to try 100 times harder to listen to what that person is saying if there's a group of people telling you not to listen to them. And so I'm doing this because I don't want anyone standing out and taking that risk by themselves. This is all of us together. And I threw my hat in a while ago. I'm in it to the end. If other fellow citizens are willing to risk everything they've got for me, I'm going to return the favor and do that for them and everyone else.
Wow. That is
Well,
just
Mark,
incredible.
thank you so much, and we will get you down here to Bayou Country. I know of a place to hook up your RV that's very close and free, and there's good cooking to go along with it. So we'll get you down here and get you in front of some people so you can make a difference and an impact here as well.
Thank you. I'd love to. I appreciate it.
God bless you, Mark.
God bless you, Mark. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to The State of Freedom, LLC at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit LACAG.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.